In this video, we're going to look at the page design section. Now, this is the fun section of the design document. It's where you get to actually design your system and see what it's going to look like for the first time. Now, it's not difficult. You just need to do detail, which, again, if you're passionate about this, should be fairly easy for you. Now, I've started off my example with what colors I'm going to use. You don't have to do this, but I've done it just to save me explaining it in every other page. All of my pages are going to use this, so I'm going to use the CSS style sheet. So all of my pages are going to use these colors. You don't need to be exact. You can just give, say, red or brown or green. You don't need to tell me the exact hex colors of them, but I've just put in the picture and I've said this red, this green, for example. So if you're going to use CSS, guys, you can state it here. The next thing I did is I stated what my template is going to look like. Most websites have a very similar layout for each page. So if your page is going to save yourself some work, show me the template, show me what's going to be down the side, show me what's going to be at the top. If they're always going to stay the same, it saves you repeating it. You don't have to do it this way. You can repeat it if you want to, or if every page is going to be different. So if you're doing a game, for example, you're probably going to have a different layout for each screen. So you might not be able to do a template. So if you don't have one or you don't need one, don't worry. But if you are going to use one, it's useful to do it once, save you repeating it everywhere. Now notice I've laid it out. Now I did this in Word, guys. I just used some text boxes and pictures. So I just went into insert. Come on, Word. Here we go. I put in a canvas so everything is grouped together, and then I literally just played around with it and put in what I wanted to do. That's one way of doing it, guys. You can do it in Photoshop, you can do it in Paint, you can handwrite them if you want to, whatever's easiest for you, but it must be drawn, okay? So either in an app or on paper. You cannot use code for this, okay? It has to be hand drawn. So this is how I did it. So I put in my buttons and then I labeled them, okay? So I roll over button, and I've stated what's on the page. Now before I go further, let me show you the mark scheme. So the mark scheme says there are also detailed written descriptions of any processes or modules, okay? It needs to be a well-designed project for a specific problem describing key aspects of the structured solution. So if you want 5 to 6 marks, it needs to show me the key aspects. So not everything. But if you want full marks, again, covering all required functionality. Okay, detailed written descriptions. So guys, you have to write about these designs. You cannot just show them. Specifically says in the mark scheme, detailed written descriptions. Okay. So obviously this page is very basic, so I didn't need to write very much. And remember, this example is not a full mark example. This example is worth only 5 or 6 marks. Okay, so you need to do more than me if you want full marks. So my next page, notice I said this is for where the main content's going to be. So all the other pages now are going to be just here. All pages are going to have this. I'm now just designing this bit. So here's the login page. I have described it, but I wouldn't say this is detailed. If I want more marks here, I would add in some pseudocode. I would add in some details about the database, because obviously this goes to the database to check if the user exists or not. We did do that when we did some coding. You can easily remember that. The other thing I've included is help. So what will happen if there's an error? So if there's an incorrect password, this is what will happen. If they don't enter something, this is what will happen. Then next page, I've described it. I've said what's on it. So I've stated the components on it. and again I've given help. Same for this page. This is more complicated, so I've described it in a bit more detail. The other thing I've done for the more complicated pages is I've added in pseudocode. Now, this is not the greatest pseudocode. I would expect more if you want full marks, but it's just an example of how you can lay it out. So if you want full marks for a complicated page, I would expect some pseudocode and maybe even a flowchart or a DFD for the specific process of that page. So I have done that somewhere else. So this is another complex page that runs a query. It's a complex query, so I put in the query. So it's pseudocode, but the query makes sense. And I've also done a flowchart to show the logic. So we're now looking at more detail. It looks like a very simple page, but it's quite complicated, and this is the logic for it. So if you give me pseudocode, if you describe, if you give me the logic, I can give you 7 or 8 marks. If you do it for each page. If you only do it for some, I can only give you 5 or 6 marks. So guys, you should have fun with the page designs, okay? It's interesting and it looks cool. Make it look good, okay? But add in the detail, okay? Give me pseudocode. Give me specific flowcharts for this page, okay? Or if needed, if it's data heavy, give me a DFD instead. So again, quite a simple looking page. Another one, but again, I've given some pseudocode. I've given some pseudocode. And for this one, I gave a flowchart because the logic was a little bit difficult to follow. Like I keep saying, guys, this is not worth full marks, okay? I don't want you to go in, I don't want real code. You cannot give real code. Head office are very strict about that. It's pseudocode only. If you give me really detailed flows and really detailed DFDs, you might not need pseudocode. Again, it depends on your system. It's what's appropriate for your system. If you're not sure, you can ask me. And like I say, when I mark it, I'll give you feedback and I'll say, okay, can you give me a flowchart for this? Or can you give me a DFD for this? What's the logic for this? Okay, add in some pseudocode. So I will give you that help. But guys, please, detailed written descriptions, okay? Make sure you cover all required functionality. Make sure it's well designed. If it's not these things, you're here, okay? Which is not where you want to be. That's less than half marks. As ever, guys, if you need any help or if you want to clarify anything, please just ask me. Good luck.